but in a different way. Okay, so you have a couple of different insurances there.
Pushin feedback, please.
I don't know if mine's pushing feedback. Just, I think it's the main thing is this material is awful for me. So like, if I were doing this as a senior, I probably wouldn't I wouldn't remember much of this. Like I wrote it all down, but I probably wouldn't look at it again, and I wouldn't really care, just because it's boring to me. So I don't know if there's any way you can make it relevant to them, and make it interesting to them. Because God, I don't know how you make it relevant to me. I like social studies. So, I don't know, maybe if you have any like criminals in your class or something, you can really teach them about the court systems that are interested. But I feel like this would be hard to almost test them well on because I feel like they'd all be miserable on it if you asked them about using these course study tests. And I don't really know if that's personal feedback or what that is.
I think that's really a comment on the subject.
Yeah. So I'm sorry.
Hold on a second. Heath, you next.
When we first started the lesson, just make sure that your students are calm with it, because I was pretty much shut out until we had got to the second one of these. Like I didn't know what was going on half the time, so I was still coming back after my teaching period. So just make sure you check that your students are kind of with it.
After you've been shut down so much, given the context.
And building off of what Dave was saying in terms of making it relevant, when I started reading the primary source, I actually started kind of underlining things, kind of anticipating what we might be talking about. The things that I was thinking about was issues like, should we try terrorists that committed 9/11 in the United States? Should the underwear bomber be tried in the United States? And I mean, these are controversial issues that are really addressed right here. The United States can try people involved in controversies to which the United States shall be a party. So does that mean that they have a right to be tried here? Like, people are going to have different takes on that, and that can be a nice way to see, well, if they were tried here, where would they be tried, and why would they be tried here based on this? So I think that might be a way to spark interest in it.
I was also going to echo what Dave said. I certainly wouldn't go against what your teacher wants to teach or whatever, but I think if it were me personally, I would probably narrow down the number of different courses that you cover, because, I mean, while they all deserve to be mentioned, most of these courts people are never going to hear or, care about for the rest of their life. So I'd rather just know more about a few of the most important ones.
I'm going to build on that and then we'll go to Debbie. And I was just thinking, and I was chatting with Charlie about this, 10 is a lot to do this activity with. I like the moving through the stations. I was just thinking about technique more than anything else first, but if you did 5 like this, with a focus, and say they're the the constitutional ones, then we'll do a jigsaw with the legislative ones, so they can focus on that. So some of them are already answered, and you've also maybe got this almost completed for them as a backup if you run out of time, that they can pass on. And then it might save some time, and then in between where you pick the 5 or the 5 or however you decide to split it up, you bring in some of these types of questions that, today we're hearing loads of stuff in the press about certain issues. Which courts are we dealing with here? And sort of like raise some of those issues. So it could run over a day, but you kind of hit in some of the current events and some of those things. So a little bit of, even though it was only 20 minutes, 10 stations, and as somebody who works out, it's like you would never probably do 10 stations, right? If you're doing so limit it to just your quads, and then take a break and discuss, and then go to your biceps on something else. Some type of net power. Debbie.
You kind of already hit on this about the length of the things, but I found myself eyeballing the answers. Like if I saw a date, I went, ooh, write that down. Like I wasn't reading any of it, and like I know a senior would do that too. Like they'd be like, I'm looking for this, and so once I get the answer, stop reading. And so, like, I understand the qualm with, do I keep it long, save the information, and I don't even know how you would shorten it to where you're not just saying this is the answer, write it down. But it's almost like if you would shorten it and done less, you would have had more discussion time, and then maybe you yourself could have gone in depth and supplemented and told them and talk about it so that you're sure they get it. And then my second one, during your lecture, you trail off sometimes. Like you'll have something and then, like your voice will just lower to where I couldn't hear like sometimes the last thing you were saying. I almost felt like a confidence issue. If you weren't sure and then you're like, da-da-da.
I had the chart is good, except we had an issue of constitution and legislative or both. So I would have liked to have seen that option in there. So constitutional, legislative, or both. That's just a minor little nitpicky thing, but for students, that really can throw them off, I think. And echoing Debbie again, I think owning the material. You knew the stuff, but I still felt presenter, not. There wasn't a lot of internal ownership of that, and that just comes with practice and whatnot. What was your? Oh, you can talk to it, but so yeah, it just takes time, and you may have that ownership by 7th period. After you've told the stories, but yeah. So just think about that.
This is kind of like almost a reflect, because I'm really bad about this. When Dave and I were about to come to blows, to fisticuffs, you did step in. We were just kidding around or whatever, but if that situation should actually, okay, I wasn't kidding around, but he was. Should that situation arise in a classroom where two people are starting to get a little overly aggressive with each other, like I know when that happens in my class, I'm really just like, all right, guys, knock it off. But it comes down to like that class expectation, like that's not acceptable behavior here. This is supposed to be like a safe learning environment. So you just step in and that was good classroom management practice, but just being a little more forceful about it. Like I said, I definitely need to work on that too. Just being clear about you cannot act like that in here. That's completely unacceptable on both your parts. I don't care who started and why it started, but you cannot do that in here. Type deal.
You started. Any more?
About it.
Gentlemen? Any more? Thoughts? Responses?
I like the idea of bringing in like the terrorist trials. That's really good. I'm actually doing for my research the technology thing, a blog of current events where they're going to read and respond. So that'd be a good way to tie it into the blog and the current events. So that was good. With the class expectations, I'm actually going to write a syllabus for the first day, a student teacher syllabus, which whoever had my teacher last year did. And that's a good way to set the expectation, and then you have to keep it in the classroom too. So, yeah.
I would say, it's one of those sometimes where you get to these things like foundational understandings, and having the foundational understanding is, even if it's just a small foundational understanding, we can leap from. And I think that's why I think this is a good lesson. In a sense, there's a lot, but it gives the lesson to try and engage him in ways. So it just gives them that basis, and then I think this is a sort of like a general overview, and then you dive in and you're focusing on some really specific things that are really important to understand about today to make it significant. Because I do think there's always a danger with this subject matter of falling into the trap of just going through the sort of like the machinations of the political system, and I think that's pretty dry. But then it can be, you can unravel and peel back some really kind of cool stuff, and I think this sets this up to do that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the blog and things like that. Thank you very much.